All right, so we have to do an asylum.
We gotta.
We always have to do an asylum.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to do a creepy show, you got to do an asylum.
Gotta do an asylum.
How you doing, Lloyd?
Love an asylum.
Oh, yes. Producer Lloyd's around, so you may hear some things. Okay. Yep. We'll do an asylum. Welcome to Unearthly Upstate. I'm Mari.
I'm Matthew.
And today we are going to talk about the Willard Asylum.
Ooh, long line of asylums.
Us. And this one recently made the news. Part of this facility is still in use. It's being used by the State of Corrections. So this is not a place you can readily visit or see. But it did make the news because they found an attic in the building as they were closing down one of the buildings that was full of suitcases of patients who had been there, full of their personal belongings. And that made the news, and it kind of gives a kind of a creepy but yet sad feeling at the same time. But we're going to discuss the history of the Willard Asylum. And like I said, all asylums seem to have the same creepiness. They all seem to be haunted. They're definitely a place where
asylums by their nature have a sort of creepy vibe to them anyway. So,
but the Willard Asylum did not start out as an asylum.
Really?
Yes. So
where is the Willard Asylum located?
It is in Ovid, New York. Originally, the state purchased the land to make the first agricultural college there. So,
is that how the Willard Estate started its life, or?
Yes.
Okay.
They bought the land there. This was prior to the Civil War. They put all the buildings in. They go to open it up, and the Civil War starts. The university is supposed to open, but now all of a sudden they have no teachers and they have no students, so it did not open.
Yeah. All those students are now doctors and earning 10 American dollars an amputation out on the battlefields. So in 1864, Dr. Sylvester Willard was appointed by the state to prepare a report on the local invalids and infirmed populations of the state. The Utica State Hospital, which we discussed last season, had been built 20 years earlier, and this report was to see if the state needed another asylum. So Dr. Willard's report showed that there was a large population of people that were in county jails, poorhouses, and homeless that could be better taken care of in asylum settings and not where they were languishing. So again, we see this repeatedly again and again, good intentions. They want to help these people. It all starts out with good intentions.
Yes, it all does. So on April 8th, 1865, the New York State Legislature established a state asylum. It was named after Dr. Willard, who had just died 6 days prior.
Oh, boy.
But in 1866, the construction began on the new asylum.
Start.
Yeah. And Dr. John Chapin, was appointed the medical superintendent. Now, on October 13th, 1869, the first patients arrived by steamboat. And the very first patient, I would love to find out more about her. I think her story would make a good movie, actually, especially talking about how these people were treated in the mid-1800s. So the first patient was Mary Rote, had been chained for 10 years without a bed and without clothing in a cell in Columbia County's almshouse. 10 years!
10 years there.
Chained like a dog. Yeah. At the time of her transfer, she was found crouched in the corner of her cell, partially covered with a blanket, but without any other clothing or even a bed. Dr. Chapin later reported that in the Willard facility, she had been daily dressed and at times presentable. Her general appearance and habits of cleanliness were much improved, but she died 7 years later in 1876. Yeah, she was a real sad case. I mean, when they took her off the boat, she arrived in a blanket. They didn't even put clothes on her to transfer her to this facility. And you find out a lot of them were transferred that way.
Why spend time and attention on a lunatic? It's part of it.
I mean, it was like, oh, let's get him in the boat out of here. And just grabbed him and moved him. They didn't bother.
Our problem is moving on its way? Oh, lovely. Go ahead. Transfer him right away.
Yep. There was 3 more patients arrived that day. One had been transferred from the Utica Asylum. He had been kept in a cell with his legs and hands bound in irons. He had been fed through a hole in the door.
Like you do.
Yep. Another male had been kept in a county home for 22 years in a 5-by-6 foot cell without windows, and he completely lost the use of his legs. The third arrived in what looked like a chicken crate, a 3.5 foot square box.
This is what happens to people after they lose a war. What's going on here?
Yeah. These patients were considered troublesome. They had been quieted by flogging, dousing, and pulling, hanging by the thumbs, in the almhouses before they arrived at Willard.
Wow. I sometimes wonder whether or not the intelligence agencies go headhunting around the various institutions looking for people who are accustomed to doling out torture.
Oh, it's crazy. Okay. But at Willard, they were treated differently. They were bathed, dressed, fed, not chained, not stuck in the Utica crib. They were actually treated like humans. Guess what? They were fine patients. Every one of them turned out to be, after they were shown kindness and warmth and a bed.
Basic humanity.
Yes, they still had to be taken care of, because by this time, if they hadn't had any issues, they definitely do now.
Certainly, yeah. If their issues were exacerbated by their experience in the almhouses.
Yes. So new arrivals came by boat. Many came shackled. And at the dock, the irons were removed. And inside the hospital, like I said, they were treated with kindness. And again, this one also was built on the Kirkbride plan, which also the Utica Asylum was built on. So it was a big honking, And it was built in a way so the staff could more interact more with the patients and give them what they needed. So it wasn't so much to just lock them in a cell and walk away. They were out on the wards with the patients, and it was a much more open design. So, much better design. The idea that these people could still be functional members of society, even if they needed to stay within the hospital because they needed assistance for daily living. So you're talking about probably people who are homeless, probably mentally ill, again. Unfortunately, if you ever see the list of why people could be locked up, I see a list every so often floating around the internet of reasons people will be locked up in these things, and it's just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I would have been in one years ago. I mean, it's just,
Oh, yeah, yes. Anyone who's hospitalized for psychiatric treatment, such as it was back then, would be getting this kind of treatment. I mean, if it was just general policy,
I think
as a part of on the part of the management.
I think a part of it was not understanding how to treat people at the time. Part of it was also, they were just getting rid of the problem.
Pretty much, yeah.
They weren't trying to solve the problem. And when you see in the mid, 1800s, there was no, we need to solve this problem. We can't just keep shoving these people in these places and forgetting about them. We have to do something. But as we see later on, the good idea turns around to, let's just shove these people in the cradle.
It seems dedication to positive treatment of patients seems to swing back and forth from negative to positive, throughout the years.
So this hospital becomes quite popular, obviously. In the campus of the new hospital, they had to add more buildings to it. There were workshops and dormitories and gardens and laundromat. Again, like we discussed in Letchworth and in Utica, a lot of the patients who could be put to work were put to work to help them. There is kind of a sense of...
the less severe, more lucid cases.
Yeah, I mean, if you're being productive and you're working in the situation, I don't think that's considered a bad thing, especially if the labor is productive. Like if you're working in the garden and you're helping to feed everyone who's there, that's a productive thing. That's that's not taking advantage of people. Because there are situations in some of the prisons where it seems like that's what they're doing. They're taking advantage of the inmate population for free labor. But then you also have prison systems where the inmates are given these labor as part of the training to when they get out. They're put into jobs that, well, New York...
I think they call it slavery through the back door.
Well, no, I was going to give you an example. The state of New York's got the big food production facility in central New York. That's almost all inmate run. They have the overseers, they have the staff that works there, but the inmates do all the work there. And it's one of the more prized jobs to get because you are paid nearly $1 an hour. Remember, this is prison wage. In
a strange way, it's probably the first real-life kind of occupation that the inmates have ever had in their entire lives.
Right, and they do learn quite a bit there. I mean, they do learn a lot about food production, about, there's things they can take out into the real world after
Absolutely,
they're released.
Real-world skills.
Yeah. So that's why I say, that's where when they were having the patients work in the laundromats back then, you were helping to support the area, and the prisoners are working laundromats now. They're working there. They're busy. They're getting paid for the time. Yeah, the wages are, in our view, are dismal. It's a job, and it's a job that you could take skills away from.
Begs the question: how did the people before they turned to criminality? Where was?
That's a whole other discussion, I think.
Yeah, I think it is. Where was the development of these life skills to begin with?
We could go into a whole other podcast, probably a whole other.
Oh yeah, yes,
different podcast about that. It's a big deep question.
Not just an episode, but an entirely different program.
Yep. So to go back to Willard, by 1872, the main asylum was completed, and it could hold 500 people, which is pretty good. Yeah.
That's going to quickly become crowded, I imagine.
Oh, yes. By the 1870s, the Willard Asylum for the Insane had 125 male and 450 female patients. So they're already overpopulated.
Dang.
Because of the influx of female patients, the former agricultural college building was renovated to hold 200 women of the quiet type. And by 1877, the asylum held 1,550 patients, making it the largest asylum in the United States at that time.
Wow.
Okay.
Quiet type?
Quiet type, yeah. Now...
I mean, introverted.
Introverted, yeah. Here's an interesting patient they had. Modern times, she was trans female. Another patient by the name of Joseph Lobel had committed for a rare form of mental disease, as his doctor put it. Joseph had been born a woman, so it's a trans male. Okay. But he felt himself to be a man, so he spent 10 years at Willard before being transferred to another mental hospital where he remained until his death. So there we have, on the record, a trans person. Now, what's interesting about that is they have record of him and wasn't treated weirdly for this. Was treated with a little bit more respect than would have gotten anywhere else. I mean, for example, in 1911, a woman was put into one of these asylums because her boyfriend happened to be black.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
1911.
1911.
No other reason. It's because she dated a black man.
Oh, you must be crazy.
That's why I'm thinking Joseph Lobdell here. That was pretty cool that they took the time to help, accept him, which is neat. Okay. As with all these asylums, they were self-sustaining, like we discussed. Farms and fields were used to raise food for the patients. The laundry and the kitchen and other areas were staffed by patients. And among the building, the campus had its own cemetery. Very common, the own cemetery there. And unfortunately, many of the patients who had been buried there were in unmarked graves. So I think that depended on the institution. We've run into a few of these institutions where they did a really good job of keeping track who was buried where. And then we'd run into others who were just like, oh, just put them in the plot. And really didn't have any record of it. So I can't say it was a consistent thing across all of them. It seems like an institution, how they did it. So in Willard, like many others, and they never kept the records. So we don't know who's buried out there. All we know is there's a cemetery. Now, we could pretty much, if you heard the other asylum stories, you know what's going to happen. Willard goes for a while, it's an asylum, and then it gets really overcrowded, and then it gets shut down. Well, in the case of Willard, though, like I said, it's owned by the Department of Corrections. It is now the Willard Drug Treatment Center, or at least that is in the same land as the Willard Asylum was. But in 1995, a couple of personnel found a sealed attic. And inside the attic were hundreds of suitcases. Now I'm going to read this from the article verbatim. This is from Suitcases from Historic Willard Asylum Kept Stories of People With Nowhere to Go. This is by Andrew Purcell, June 17th, 2015. Sydney Morning Herald. It's interesting I had to get an article from Australia for this, but all right.
Good day, mate.
Yeah. By the early 1990s, as a result of deinstitutionalism policies that had emptied the wards, it was marked for closure. Bev Courtwright spent the winter of 1994-95 taking inventory of a building called the Old Sheltered Workshop. She cataloged medical records, rows of sewing machines that inmates had once labored at, and body parts used as autopsy specimens by the School of Nursing. Thinking she was finished, she called her supervisor, Lisa Hoffman, to do a last check. Miss Courtwright had been taking the stairs, and it was only when they stepped into the lift that she realized there was a third floor, a dusty attic covered in bird droppings, with a mattress in the corner and a door at one end.
Yeah.
Lisa pulled on the door and it gave way with a whoosh. The memory will be forever embedded in my brain, Miss Courtwright says. It was facing the west. It was late afternoon and the sun was shining in. The vacuum sent up the dust, and the rays were just glorious and surreal. And there they were, the suitcases. There were 429 cases, arranged alphabetically in wooden racks, men on one on the right, women on the left. I knew the owners were deceased. I felt their energy. It was like they were still being tied to the few remaining treasures that didn't find their way home. After opening one valise and consulting with the head of the groundskeeper, Courtwright called the New York State Museum. The museum historians cataloged and wrapped every item in the suitcase, which turned out to date from 1910 to 1965. For the past 4 years, photographer John Crispin has been making weekly visits to the museum storage, a facility in Rochester, to document their contents. And I will put links on our webpage to if you want to see
you can
those.
check out those photographs of all those suitcases and their contents. Very interesting.
Yeah, but look for if you want to look for it yourself, look for Willard Suitcases, all one word. Yes, and it's the John Crispin Gallery. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Some strange objects, some ordinary.
Yeah.
Some really personal. Some really personal objects from the patients of the time.
Right.
A real, wow, what a time capsule.
Yeah, it is.
To discover.
Yeah.
And, wow, what a thrilling experience for an archiver.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that right there is the reason why most people get into archiving and
history and
research, and is a discovery like that. And it was completely by chance, and how exciting that was for her to, have that experience of a lifetime.
And just think of all the stories they found.
Mm-hmm.
You could look through them. I mean, like I said, the photos are amazing, what they find there. And it kind of brings into focus, I mean, these people had nowhere else to go. This was the only place they could go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that was their life, was all in that little box, that little suitcase. It was just...
really incredible and sad all at the same time.
Yeah.
A person's entire life fitting into a suitcase.
Yep.
People comment on how depressing sometimes van life can get because of the lack of the size of the amount of downsizing you've got to do in your life in order to fit it into a 6x10 space.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's nothing compared to having to fit your life into a suitcase only, and that's it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the items. Well, what were some of the items that they found?
Oh, just like you said, personal items and that. Well, just for example, I'm just gonna. There's polydent in this one. Oh my God, that's a dulcimer.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
That's a hammer dulcimer.
That's a hammer dulcimer. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then this guy looks like this person.
Musical instruments, other personal items. Just maybe ordinary sundry personal items, but then something incredible like that hammer dulcimer.
And this person has a baseball bat, like a mini baseball bat in theirs. Mm-hmm. There's newspaper clippings. In fact, that's cool. The baseball bat was made... it was from the Syracuse Chiefs in Syracuse, New York. It was one of those...
mini bats.
It was a mini bat,
Mini bat day.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. If they had the name... If you go in these galleries, if they have the name of the person, they have the main... suitcase and the name of the person, and then you can click on the person's name and they do close-ups of everything that was in the suitcase. John Crispin did that. This is a person named Stefan, And he has this lovely alarm clock in there. And a shaving kit with a nice shaving mirror.
Right, yeah.
You know, and olive oil Castile soap. Wow. Yeah, this is...
Castle soap.
Yeah, yeah. So I would highly recommend checking these out. It's just interesting seeing what they found. And some of these suitcases are just so, plain looking and just so nondescript. Oh, there's a cute one. This is kind of a more beaten up suitcase. Mm-hmm. But inside, well, there's a little picture of the child Jesus. And then what I would say is...
pornography.
No, it's not pornography, but it's risque. It's risque stuff. So.
Soft porn.
Yeah.
I don't know. Erotic materials of the day.
Yeah. Oh, this one. Oh my gosh. Let me look at this one. This one caught my eye. Frank C. is the name. Military man. A lot of personal items.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tools mixed with personal hygiene items.
Memo notebook, The Gospel of John the Apostle, and The Complete Guide to Brooklyn were the books that were in there. And then there's the picture of the man himself.
Picture of himself. Looks like Army.
Army. I was going to see if maybe there was something else that showed he was Army. There's a Post-it note there with a stamp.
What's that stamp? What is that?
It says, I'm trying to read this backwards, it's C with a bunch of letters. I'm not quite sure what it is. There's the ration book cover and probably pictures of his family right there.
Oh, wow.
And is that a lighter or a gun?
That looks like a pop gun.
That's probably... Or a lighter, maybe?
No. Because it's got a handle on the end where the trigger should be.
Is that... No, those are something else. Okay. Wow, that is...
Well, what's it say in the description?
It doesn't.
How interesting.
Yeah. But, I mean, it can't be a real gun because the front of it's so weird.
It could be a lighter or something like that.
Yeah, it could be a lighter. But, it's just... Right there, you got something really, it just catches your eye and you're like, wow.
Yeah, a lighter, a small lighter in the shape of a 1911 44 Army.
I'm going to pick one more, okay? Because these are, you could spend hours on the site, believe me. This one, they just have the initials of the person. Bearcat Luggage Corporation from Buffalo, okay? And newspaper clippings.
How about that?
Pretty much. You don't know why they have the newspaper clippings, but it's kind of interesting that's what's filled with this one.
Well, what an enormous find.
Yeah. Oh, they're reading Moon Mulligans and Gasoline Alley. And reading those strips.
Right. We hope you've enjoyed this run down the rabbit hole here.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, and an ad for Wonder Bread. Okay, that's interesting. Anyway.
Very old, yeah. Well, what the heck, with a timeline between... What was it?
It was from it was right after the Civil War, right close to the Civil War?
No. The suitcases.
The suitcases from 1911 to 1965.
1965, okay.
Now,
that was a year before I was born.
Yeah. Now, like I said, it's now the Willard Drug Treatment Center, which opened in 1995, so right after, this is probably why they were going through the buildings to make sure they're cleared out. It is a boot camp style drug treatment center for men and women. It's a voluntary thing. Ugh. They're not assigned to it. The inmates have to agree to themselves to use it, and from what I understand, it has a pretty high success rate.
Well, good.
It does. You're given the option to go there.
Yes,
it is your choice to
voluntary.
Go there. But it might be what you need instead of going into for a full prison term, going to the boot camp,
right,
and not serving it out in prison. So it's an optional. It's for mainly people with drug offenses, parole violators with drugs. It's could seem like a harsh way, but it does have a high success rate. So it does work for the ones who volunteer for it. Better than just putting them in the general population and go, well, have fun.
Yeah, if they're a non-violent drug offender, why stick them in with the real monsters?
Right. So this gives you another option. So
yeah,
which is good because a lot of people are there due to drug problems, and if it's working, keep it up. Yeah. I know it won't work for everybody because boot camp doesn't work for everybody.
Oh no, you're not going to get 100% success rate out of something like a boot camp style drug treatment center. It's just not gonna. That's just not realistic.
Yeah, but that's the thing with Willard. I mean, unfortunately, you can't visit this one. Unless you end up in the wrong side of the law and decide to voluntarily go to the treatment center.
Right. And the ghosts are in the suitcases.
And the ghosts are in the suitcases, yes. Which are now, I think so they were stored in Rochester. That's right. I think at the State Museum they have an archive going there as well of all the suitcases they found.
Right.
But yeah, it's, again, same story with all of them. It started with good intentions.
Right, exactly.
They shut it down, but at the same token, a lot of people forgotten about.
Don't good intentions, when it comes to things like these asylums, don't good intentions pretty much just cycle back around to greed?
Well, I think from what I've read of all these asylums we've done, they all start out good, and then they get a lot of people. The staff can't keep up. And then it starts becoming, let's shove them away again.
Yeah.
Well, the staff is trying to assist them because they want these people taken care of, and some of them, they want them to be cured. And
word gets around that this institution is, taking new patients, and then, here's a good opportunity to make a relative disappear.
Right.
Or something like that.
And, and then you look at, Mary Rote, the example of her. I mean, my God.
Yeah, the first patient into the institute, and yes, the treatment that she got from the poorhouse. Right. Or the almshouse, rather.
Now, just imagine.
That's just,
She probably had nothing mentally wrong with her except she couldn't pay her bills and was poor. And look what happened to her,
Oh, yeah.
It's really troublesome to, They do sometimes offer tours. Once in a great while, they will offer tours.
Okay, well, there you are.
Yeah. So there you go. If you want to, keep an eye out for it, want to visit it, just remember you are going onto Department of Corrections land, so you might, if you're not.
So remember where you are.
Yes.
I'm sure anyone who does choose to go on a trip out to this location and partake in a tour, yes, they're probably going to give you the rundown.
Yeah.
As to what is going on.
Right. So, okay, well, that's the end of Willard. Again, it's a lot of the same with every one of these asylums to touch, but again, every one of these asylums, there's something unique about every one of them. And I wonder what would have happened if they would have kept it a college.
Wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah.
Because
Cornell was about the same time, and
and yet Cornell didn't shut down because of the war. Yeah. And so, if the people who were setting up had followed through with
Agricultural College,
rather. Yeah, if they had followed through with their plans to develop the agricultural college, then, we might have had a different story to tell today.
Yeah. Exactly.
But or we might not have had any kind of story to tell today.
Maybe it would have been the Cornell Asylum and not the Willard Asylum.
Well, thank you anyway for listening to our Ghastly podcast.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Unearthly Upstate. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Patreon, and on our webpage. We are also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher, Podbean, Google Podcast, and CastBox. Please like, share, and review on your favorite platform. Unearthly Upstate is an Animator Liar production. The show is produced by Mari and Matt Manette, with purring provided by Honey and Lloyd. Research and writing by Mari Manette. Music is by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Unless otherwise stated in the episode, the places mentioned in the broadcast are not paid or contact us for any type of promotion. Please check out our webpage for credit and sources for the episode. Thank you.